And I believe we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the circle. Tonight's show is going to be an interesting one. It's been a little bit of a slow news week, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm sure we can find a couple of things to talk about. A couple of stories just came up that Taya and I were just discussing. But glad to have everyone with us. If it's your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. And yes, if you like what we do here, which is honest conversation about gaming, most of the time we focus on, the more business aspects of the games, but also we talk about gameplay, we talk about new releases, reviews, everything surrounding gaming. This show should actually be called Oz the Wiz Gaming. I think that's an appropriate name, but I'll consider it. Taye, welcome in. How are you?
Hey, what's up? You good?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, man. I can sense you going through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give us an update. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I came down with something, so not great. But it is a migraine that seems to be attached with it. That could be
Yeah.
because of, screen time or whatever it is. Not too sure. But whenever a migraine is attached to it, it normally leans towards, it means I probably have COVID or something like that. But yeah, I don't feel better. Even though I was trajecting upwards. And then today I'm like, nope, that just went out the window. So yeah,
What is
uh,
that word? Like it's. I know you saying like an upward trajectory, but what is that word? Sorry, I just as
like
you were saying it, I'm like, I know
I think I
what you're
probably said
saying.
it wrong, but like it means I was just going upwards.
Yes,
Like the plane is
exactly.
going upwards, yeah. So I was like
Uh,
getting better.
yeah, yeah.
It just helps.
And now, what are you in? You feel that you're in? Is it remission? And but
Yeah,
basically,
it
your
could
state
be.
getting.
Well, I think it's kind of it feels weird because I feel like it's different. Because at first, like when I first was ill, it was just fatigue, and there was
Hmm.
no real symptoms of like throat or anything. It was just pure fatigue. Now, then it flipped towards like symptoms of different things when I was getting better.
Hmm.
Um, but now I guess the fatigue is also coming back. So maybe I just wasn't like wasn't getting better. Just my body was just good at masking the other problems. But anyways, yeah.
It doesn't sound like you're having a good time.
Yeah. Just the weekend just means the weekend I have to just
Yeah,
relax,
power
chill,
through it.
and play games. Pretty much.
Yeah,
That is the cure for everything.
yeah, yeah. I feel you on that. So, what are you playing?
Not, honestly, I'm just playing with Unity. That's all
Sorry, what?
I'm playing Unity. Like
Unity.
like
Oh,
yeah,
yes, you're doing your programming on Unity.
yeah. I'm looking into Unity.
Yeah.
Trying to learn some stuff here and there. So that's pretty much it.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think we've had those conversations, but we've never shared with everyone. Like like you were experimenting with Unity, and how's that going?
Yeah. So I wanted to a decent found understanding of um I guess you could say game development. So
Mm-hmm.
I started to look at tutorial videos on Unity, the DO, how to how to kind of code and put things together, just the fundamentals basically. And the real goal was just that not necessarily make something per se, although like I'm kind of smart about that. But it was just to have an understanding. So like let's say like you saw this Google AI stuff, like if something was to come up, I was like, okay, fine, we now have the technology to just speak into existence the kind of game we want, but we need to have some kind of foundation in Unity, Unreal. I think it'd be cool. It'd be great if I had the foundational experience to like capture that and then build from that. So that's kind of it. That's what I've been. That's what I've been doing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's fun. Like it's kind of bringing back some kind of element of like editing, creativeness vibe. Like, oh yeah, oh I learned this, oh I did this, oh I put this together now. This that. Oh, this button works. Okay, now this button means this person uses his sword. It's things like that. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But the whole coding stuff, I hate it. I don't like coding. I don't like any of that stuff. But it can be a means to an
Yeah.
end. That's when AI comes in handy. Then you can just tell the AI what you want, and then it would like do the code for you. Like you still gotta put things together, but like it creates the code for you, and then boom.
Mm-hmm. Would you recommend it to other people wanting to explore game development or that are interested in video games in general?
I would say yeah, there's some good videos you can watch on Unity. But I would say Unity first, and I would also recommend going towards the AI tools so you can, excuse me, so you can like speak about. Rosebud is one. There's another one called GL something. I think those can actually help you like prototype your games pretty well as well. It's really good. And if you're willing to just kind of understand, like create something that has a core foundation loop, then boom, I think you can be onto something. Just make sure the loop is okay. Like I created something and loop was okay, but I was like, yeah, well, this is gonna be boring though. Like I can see somebody like, okay, I did this like 5 times, and then now they're like, okay, I'm out of here, bruh. And I think that's where these like AI tools and having a good understanding of like whatever Unity, Unreal, though can actually be handy. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Welcome in, Fuzzy. Yo, back to you. So, Tai, in terms of like what we're going to talk about today, one of our big topics, or one of the major things that we're going to be talking about is Marathon, because it came out like a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, there's been some development when it comes to that front. So we're just going to unpack that and just sort of like look at like what does that mean for Sony? What does that mean for their live service pivot? Are they gonna stay on that route, or are they gonna abandon ship, go back to what they know? All those things. We're gonna go down that rabbit hole. And then our second story, something that also just recently, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where this story popped up, is Amazon Luna being sunsetted. Basically, yep, it's done. It's going the way of the Stadia. Slowly but surely, Amazon is going to sort of like just shut down the service and have it like as a background service, and not as a major pivot as what it was initially. And of course, probably last but not least, there's a couple of extras. There's a couple of Easter egg topics I want us to discuss. But last but not least, in terms of like the bigger topics, is there's a rumor that came out, and I thought this would make for a nice discussion, that PlayStation is considering releasing for the PS6 a cheaper version of the PlayStation. Probably, like people are probably going to call it the PlayStation S until it comes out. And I find that so ironic. Again, it's a situation where Microsoft was right, but they were right 5 years too early. So again, like maybe they didn't have the tools to execute at the time. We'll unpack and we'll look at that. And will it make a difference? Because I think if you're Sony, and this is to me what did not make any sense. Again, I always said in the past that the console business is pretty, it's easy to understand. You just have to study the past, and you'll more or less know what to expect in the future. What I didn't understand is that this whole sort of like insistence on pricing, no longer subsidizing some of the pricing, and literally just releasing high-end entertainment systems that cost a small fortune to the average person. How does that, because growth is one thing, but how is that sustainable? So maybe when we talk about that, I really want to get into that, is that like, to me, what these news, like what's just been announced, or the rumor, makes sense. But we'll get into that. And something else, Tai, did you get your Xbox Helix influencer pack?
Did I get what? Sorry.
Did you get your Xbox Helix influencer pack from Asha?
No, my payment from Xbox is strictly financial.
Okay, so Asha didn't send you any like welcome pack.
I mean, they wanted to, and I said like, "Yo, are you gonna deduct this pack from my annual salary, my annual grift salary?"
Your shield salary, your shield and group salary. Yeah, so yeah, that happened. Like, and you saw this, like all these postings of like, "Hey, look at what I got," and of course, that people are gonna talk. We know what the conversation is gonna be. You guys tell us in the chat. Fuzzy, did you receive your influencer pack from Asha, Sharma, and the team at Xbox? And again, this just goes back into this whole thing of like this weird parasocial relationship that Xbox fans have with this company and this brand. Um, yeah, I want to unpack whether or not is that something that is going to
we do
see
that
us.
first.
Sorry. Oh
Can
yeah,
we
we
do
can.
that first?
But like my question here would be: is that something that will lead to what we've seen before with Xbox and its communication? And because the problem with this is that it becomes very, very difficult to sort of like reel this back in when it's time to make difficult business decisions. It just makes you like the villain now because you've been playing good guy Phil, good guy Sarah all the time, and then now you have to increase prices and do all these things, and then you get the negative, you get the exact opposite in terms of response. So yeah, your thoughts, Tyron, on this?
I think it's great. Smart marketing again from Asha. She's taken the good from what Xbox was, and I think it was you who told me that Xbox has actually always been a social gaming company. It wasn't just that. Okay, well, Phil's
Welcome in, Rachie. Sorry, Tyron.
you're
Glad to have you.
Ozzy was good, guys. But Xbox has always been a social gaming company, and she's leaning into that. Now the question is, when did it go too far? It went too far, you could say, when personal relationships started to get created, where maybe Phil started to become friends with certain people, maybe phone numbers were exchanged, hanging out, maybe I'm talking about things beyond gaming. But there's nothing wrong with a CEO. Like, I think I was watching a video of the guys from day one, and they were saying how like they met Phil and he was talking to them and he was genuine nice guy, and then he went on their podcast. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great, but it's when you become too attached to these people, or not like you sort of become too attached, but it's when you become their friend. That's number one. Two, there's an element of picking who you do these things with. Sorry?
What's wrong? What's wrong with Tim Dog being friends with Phil Spencer? Welcome in, Cult Classic Cage. Glad to have you.
Well, the issue there would be like if you could have somebody who is personally invested and is willing to maybe attack you and say some nasty things about you, then that's a character problem that you shouldn't have been close to that person in the first place. Nothing should be falling out like that. Like, for example, when I saw, if you're going to be close to Paris, you're going to be close to the guy from the radio, the guy, I can't remember his name, but
from the radio.
He has no hair. If you're going to be
yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he's Paris's friend, right?
Yeah, you're going to be close to Randall Thor 19. If you're going to be close to, maybe even Double Barrel Gaming, these are the kind of people that have the level of maturity and understanding of what the situation is. But if you're going to be close to people who are erratic, who are console warriors, that is not a good strategy. And I think that's where you should know that, like, okay, this person, let's kind of keep away.
So you're saying don't be close to Colt Eastwood?
No, I think if I was to like single out Cole, I think you could be close to Cole. I think the issue is like some people are just like they lean a bit towards more counter warrior kind of stuff. I don't think
is that still even the thing though? Like, I mean, who's championing what? Like, aside, there's a couple of guys that are just weirdos that just
I'll even say that
change.
Like, I think the environment now is a lot more stable than it was before in the past. I think you could even like dance with these people a little bit more. So I think, I think so. But I think here's what I would say: if you're going to do this, that's fine, but you need to confirm in June where you stand, and once everybody knows where you stand, then there's no like reason for pushback. Because the truth is this: the pushback happened simply because you told them, I don't mean Asha, I mean the previous administration, you said the games are coming. You said these are where you can find Bethesda games. You made these promises and you turned them into warriors to evangelize your device and the games, and then you just basically, I guess you could say, stab them in the back or whatever you're going to call it. And that was a problem because now these people are hurt and they feel betrayed. So this is how the conflicts happens. But you not coming in as a new CEO, if you're not, you haven't made these promises. So you can say this is the level we're at now, guys, and this is where we're kicking off from. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. You can go. If you agree with it and you're ready to go, then this is it. I think from there on forward, then I think you should be fine.
Okay, so like I've got a couple of questions for you in regards to this, but just recapping on the history of how this whole thing came about, and Cassie raised a very interesting point here. Cassie says, yeah, the parasocial relationship thing with influencers that CEOs were up to over at Microsoft was wild, and I think Xbox Fan Fest is going to encourage that again. Yes, absolutely, I agree with you, Cassie, and the reason why is because, again, is that like, where are these? Because again, when you do things like FanFest, where you get your CEOs, in fact, you should have marketing people doing these things, not executives. You should have, like back in the day when Sony had, was it Stephen Butler, who was literally, the whole thing was a marketing gimmick to get people to sort of like look at Sony as a gamer first brand, and it worked very well. But that was the whole campaign. It was a guy. It wasn't a CEO. Everyone understood this, and it was fun, and it worked out. The problem is when the CEOs become the characters. I still think it's weird. I don't think a CEO needs to be interacting with Xbox gamers, period. You should have a PR team that does that. You should have a comms team whose whole thing is to sort of like look after the community, not the CEO, not the person making the hard decisions, because it makes it just easy then to separate from the two. When, like, for instance, when you get like cool things being done by Xbox, has nothing to do, or that's not the consumer or the customers or the gamers are not going to associate that with the leadership. So when leadership makes hard decisions, I mean, it stings, but it doesn't sting the same way when you were taking selfies with executives. It's silly to me. Like I've never seen anyone else do this. I mean, Sony has done this, of course, but this is like very, 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 very limited amount of times. Like back, I would say early PS4, PS3 days. Don't see that anymore. So I don't think it's from my opinion, I think you should just be careful with it, which is my first question to you is, so how do you draw the boundaries? Because the problem is you can say Paris and you can name these creators who are corporate friendly, who say the right things at the right times, but the problem is you cannot separate them from the audiences in the space that they're part of, right?
Mm-hmm. So
that's going to follow them anyway.
So I think there's still things happening and changes being made, right? So I think they hired somebody new they hired 2 people for marketing, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone that she hired or somebody new takes over the comms part of things and becomes the face. The July showcase will reveal more. Like I would say, Asha will be on stage for sure. Booty will be on stage. Mm-hmm. Don't be surprised if somebody new steps up and starts talking. So I think that's something they could do. Now, Asha is young and she's new, and so she could say like, I already have a social media person running my account anyway, so that is the conversation. But I'm going to pull it back a little bit. Yeah. She hasn't done anything that I would see as a detriment. Mm-hmm. I think everything now is like, I'm the new CEO. Let's bring good vibes in. And it's not just me talking. Here's some receipts. Here's the new, return to Xbox, the dashboard, all these updates that were ignored. They were focused on the console. So I'm serious. If she starts to pull back now and she just decides to just send updates in general, that's great, right? Something else to know about like the parasocial relationship is like Phil would congratulate PlayStation on releasing games. Why? Why would you? Why? When you have no titles yourself, why would you congratulate these other people? So I think there was just, you could have a relationship, but you need to be clever in how you do it.
Because they were not competing with Sony, they were competing with Amazon, and they were competing with Google. That's Phil's reasoning. Sorry, Tai, to cut you off. So Fuzzy says the only person who actually thought he was friends with Phil was Tim Dog. Yeah, like, but you get the point. Like, the whole thing is a little bit overblown. Like, yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, Fuzzy. Um, hmm. Actually, no. Let me let Tai finish. Let me think on that about it being overblown. Tai, please go ahead, finish.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the July showcase will reveal all. She would need to be clear as to its exclusives happening, what's going on, and then I would say lean into that
Yeah.
because but when you lean into that, and if you can buffer that with games, like when I say games, I mean like games that people want to play, not like your Kilm and your Avowed, like actually big games. They will evangelize for you, and you will bring in more users. Like it's a tool, but you need to respect the tool, basically. So I think they'll be fine, and I think with something like we've already noticed is at the very start, she was talking a little bit more, commenting back to people, tell us your favorite games, those kind of stuff, and then in the end there was a bit of like some pushback. But then what happened was, I'm pretty sure Phil told her like, yo, you need to slow that down because I got burnt this way. I'm sure people probably talked to her and said, yo, that ain't what you do.
Yeah.
Let's manage this. So now the way she talks to these gamers is, hey, we're doing FanFest. Hey, here's Project Helix. Hey, like there's substance behind the communication.
Yeah, it's not just to buddy for the sake of being buddy. So, you know what I always wonder about Xbox is, shouldn't there be a team? And I wonder if, like, I've worked for quite a few corporates, but I've never really seen this. Shouldn't there be a team that's in charge of like consistency or brand consistency throughout? Or I suppose someone can call it synergy, but basically ensuring that your brand stays consistent in terms of like how it's messaging, But by consistency, I mean that someone is always checking. Okay, cool. So what were our core values when we started this? How has that progressed? And are we still consistent to some of those core values? And if there's been changes, how are we communicating those changes, and how are we getting buy-in from our consumer base or our customer base or players? And the reason I bring this up, because I think this happens a lot whenever you get new leadership. And I'm surprised that they've not done this now with Xbox. She's not done anything drastic. She's still doing a lot of the stuff that Phil did. So she's not changed direction completely. She's just tweaked one or two things when it comes to messaging. But typically when a new guy comes in, you instantly see that there's a huge sort of shift in direction when it comes to, like, for instance, what we're doing. A good example of this would be like with Sarah Bond. When she came in, she didn't ask. There was no consistency person to say, hey, listen, our players are console players. So the hardware is important. It's the core of what we do. So should we not be careful about like marketing that says everything is an Xbox? So do you think that these teams, or a team like that, I'll give you a good brand actually that has this probably is Nintendo, because Nintendo is very consistent and they've always been consistent with their brand, their identity, what they represent, etc. Do you think Xbox has this?
You asking me a question?
Mm-hmm. Do you think that Xbox has like a consistency team, or a team that just...
No, they don't, because I actually believe that there are so many changes happening in the strategy, and those changes are happening simply because I don't want to say changes, right? I don't think that's even fair. There was a strategy.
Core value is money. Sorry, just reading Rachel's statement.
The core value is money, for sure. There was a strategy in place, and I think, maybe Fuzzy and Rachel, you tell me if I'm wrong, classic as well. There was a core strategy in place, which was cloud, PC, console. And Game Pass was a unifying factor for all these pillars.
Yeah.
What happened was, okay, how do we market these three pillars together? And I think that's where you started to see things like everything's an Xbox. There is nothing wrong with having these pillars. The only problem was the messaging. You can't, if you are going to equate them in some way, shape, or form, you should have had the console as a foundation, and then spreading towards cloud and PC. What they did was say, well, the application is all you need. And I think that's fine, but it does devalue the actual console itself. And even at that, it wasn't bad. Like, people can cry as much as they want, it wasn't bad. The only problem, the only reason why this became an issue was when you took away the exclusive games. And that's
Yes,
it.
I agree. I agree with
So
you.
the messaging wasn't great, but then as soon as you take away the exclusive games, now everything is just worse.
So again, like, I don't want us to spend over. I see we're at the 26 minutes. I'm gonna cap this conversation at about 35 minutes about Xbox, because we always end up on these rabbit holes about Xbox. So tell me this then. Do you think that again, and we've been over this quite a few times, in terms of we understand the financial implications of this, of why they did it, right? We've discussed it several times. Again, this is where, like, for me, going back to this question about consistency, this is where, like, for me, you should have awareness of what your brand is about. I mean, especially as like a Phil Spencer, I know what you want the brand to be, but you should have a sort of an understanding, which is, I suppose, maybe he did, which is why he looked so sickly towards the end of his tenure at Xbox. He looked really, stressed. But, like, I don't see Sony making the same sort of mistake. Okay, let me not call it a mistake, but the sort of decision that is such a huge pivot, because it changes everything. But, like, moving away from exclusive changes everything about, like, how the business model works. I don't see Sony doing that. Even when they were doing their whole PC pivot, I didn't see them just doing that just haphazardly without really thinking about, like, again, what is their core identity? What is their core messaging? So do you see Xbox making similar decisions going forward in the future? Because they can't. I don't think they can turn exclusive back, to be honest with you. That's just where I'm at. I don't think they can. Again, the whole genie back in the bottle, I don't think it's happening. But do you see Xbox, for lack of a better word, making better decisions when it comes to the future of the brand and being more careful and not just doing the first thing that whoever comes in sort of says, yeah, I think this is a good idea, let's go this direction?
Yeah,
you
no,
see
I do 100%. But before that, Rachel says my first impression of Sarah was that she closed Tango down. I believe that's being confirmed that she didn't close. It wasn't her who actually closed Tango. I'm not too sure who it was. It could have been probably Booty, but more than likely there was probably some accounting involved in that. And this is what I will probably go back to Phil and say, Tango probably didn't have to get closed down.
Yeah.
Tango didn't have to get closed down if Ninja Theory was making a game that was going to bring in users. If Compulsion was making a game that was going to bring in users. Like, there's probably a ceiling where you can say, well, okay, we're going to make, if we make, like, let's say 1 billion, I'm just throwing out random numbers. If we make 1 billion, everything is fine. It could be 4 games making that 1 billion, and then the other 7 games are kind of falling short, but those 4 games are allowing the other games to exist. And I think Peter Moore said this when he was at EA. Yeah, people might hate on the big titles like the FIFA and stuff like that, but it's like those titles allow us to do the EA Play stuff, the EA indie game stuff. That allows us to, like, experiment and support these studios. So you might hate those big games, but they allow us to have this flexibility, and I love that. Another example is Shu Yoshida. He said the exact same thing as well. He said, you guys might hate the remasters and the remakes, but they fund your big games. That's what it is. You might hate your Call of Duties, but it funds your God of Wars. So you might hate the live service games, but it funds the games that you guys want to play. It allows us to take these risks because we have this buffer. Sony says 55% of our revenue comes from live service games. Sorry, it's from 10 franchises that are live service games. If they didn't have, if those games didn't exist, you won't be seeing them taking these risks with some of these big AAA blockbuster games as much. You won't be seeing them experimenting as much, right? But anyways, so just to that point, that's why I think Tango kind of got closed out, among other reasons. Asha, so your question about like, are there lessons learned? I think they are, because the lessons are learned from the people who are in charge, right? They learned a lesson with the Xbox launch, and then they brought in Peter Moore to help with the 360, which was a great decision. Then when he left, somebody else took in charge, and then the whole Xbox, E3 situation happened. And Phil then took the reins, and then he learned from that, and everything came back. So for me, they've always been learning from each console generation. Now Asha is in here, and she seems like somebody who is more numbers focused, more detailed. So and this is a part I think might be important. I don't think she has an affinity towards Xbox. Like, she doesn't care. But she understands the people who cares. She understands what makes it tick. And that might be a great thing. I know people might be afraid of that, but it might be a great thing, because if someone has an affinity towards like the device or whatever it is, it means that they can make decisions that are the best thing for that brand without having emotions be involved in it. So for example, she could easily say, I didn't make Game Pass, I'll cancel that shit, it's not working. Whereas somebody within Xbox, like who created, like let's say Phil or whatever, they might not want it to cancel because it's what they want. She might say, yeah, I didn't buy Compulsion, I didn't buy Ninja Theory, I didn't buy Double Fine. These studios are more of a drain on us than anything else, and we need to focus on titles are going to be, X, Y, Z, like they're going to sell better. Okay, like, like cut them off or make them change. Whereas somebody who is has an affinity towards them might not want to do that. They might want to keep them around. They might not want to cancel their games. They might not want to make them change their games. So I think actually having someone who's detached from the ecosystem, from the whole brand, can be a great thing. Because I would always say that the best way to acquire users is not just having games, it's having great games. And I think somebody who's smart and intelligent can come to that same conclusion. Okay. So I think there's lessons learned. And because to me, like, listen, you've had this discussion every time. How do we fix Xbox? And I'm not saying this because I like Xbox. I don't like Xbox. When I say I have to fix Xbox, I always say the exact same thing every time, because it always comes down to the exact same point every single time. And I'm thinking, surely Asha knows this as well. Because no matter what we say here, if Xbox does goes back to exclusives,
yeah,
and the games are amazing, not just exclusives, not just Kiln, not just Hellblade 2.5, it's actually like dope games that you want to play. You might not admit it, and that's fine, because you are who you are. But you will buy a Helix. But it's fine. Okay. It's perfectly fine for you to not want to admit it. It's perfectly fine for you to be like, no, you can't see that happening, because of the way, like, like you said, like they've treated their fans, the people who supported them throughout all the years. So it's not on you guys to come back or whatever it is. It's for them to have everything there already, so that decision becomes easy. The exact same way how I said, if you're gonna compete with Steam, or you actually want something from Steam, or you want to go towards this ecosystem of that has everything, it's not just about exclusive games. You need to at least have an application that does everything Steam does at a minimum. And there'll be some users who will not go to your platform regardless, but at least they can say your application sucks.
All right, that is a very optimistic take. What do you guys think in the chat? Reichi, Fuzzy, do you think that first, because I find this interesting, do you believe that Xbox can put the whole exclusives genie back into the bottle, and what do you guys think would be the best approach to do that? How do you bring back exclusives? Do you What do you do with a game like Halo? What is it? Combat. What is it called? Combat Remastered or Remake or Remade? How do you do that? Do you still put on PlayStation? Do you not put on PlayStation? What do you do with a game like Gears of War, E-Day? Do you put on PlayStation? Do you not put on PlayStation? Do you make it a timed exclusive? And of course, you've already committed to making games like what is this? Like Forza is definitely coming to PlayStation, and Fable is coming to PlayStation. How do you reposition that and actually get buy-in? I suppose is my question. You guys let us know in the chat, and I'll get back to you. Okay, cool. Okay, we've got quite a few chatter here. Quite a bit of chatter. Sorry, here. So Raichi says, Xbox need a mental institution to take care of all the stupid people at Microsoft. Look. I agree with some of that. I agree. I think it's funny, but like, yes, I do agree with some of that to a certain degree. Raichi also says there's a difference between it's on Game Pass and I may give it a try, and hey, watch this game is coming in 2 years' time. I can't sleep thinking about it. That's true. That is true. In other words, I think if I'm understanding you correctly, Raichi, you're basically talking about the fact that the excitement levels for a exclusive game that is just coming to your platform, and it's a franchise that you care about, is very different than a game just being on Game Pass. I agree with you. Like, and again, like buying games, you have a very different relationship to your games than when you play games in a subscription service. I think a lot of researchers sort of like pointed to that. Fuzzy says, I am all for putting multiplayer games everywhere. I've always been. And I think a lot of people are happy with that. A lot of people are sort of like open to putting multiplayer games everywhere. So the other question is, do you think Xbox has learned from its, the tenure that Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond had with Xbox? Which again, if you look at like the plan was solid, just like with most of Microsoft stuff. Plan was great. The problem was the execution. What do you guys think? Do you think they've learned and they've gotten better at executing? You can let us know in the chat, and then we will discuss as we get to it. Rachie says, if Avowed and Outer Worlds 2 cost 30 million each, close Obsidian down. That's a very, very strongly worded there, Rachie. But I do agree with you. And I think they cost more than 30 million, to be honest with you. And I know for a fact that Outer Worlds 2 definitely cost more than 30 million. Because then you have to include things like factor in the marketing push for the game, etc., etc., etc. All right, cool. So I think this is actually a nice segue, and we're not even that over time. We got 5 minutes over time when it comes to that Xbox subject. This is a nice segue into the marathon and the Sony conversation. And I'm going to go back to something that you just said, Taye. You said that with Sony, they said that it's like a handful of live service games, like Call of Duty, like Fortnite, that basically pay for the platform, right? However, their exclusives have also been very, very, very instrumental in terms of just brand and how the brand is perceived. I mean, the PS4 generation is considered as probably being the greatest in terms of games made by Sony generation in their history. So those games, we can't deny that those games play a huge part in that. So then my question is, has the Sony live, and we'll go through the stats in terms of like how Marathon is doing. Actually, let me have a look at the numbers here, because I think I did put them up. So current players in 24 hours, speaking specifically now about Marathon, their latest live service game, it's down by 71% to 25,392. The budget is estimated to have been 250 million plus, and so far the revenue is estimated to be 55 million in US dollars. And of course, the main criticism for the extraction shooter is that it's not a pick up and play extraction shooter like, for instance, Ark Riders was to a lot of people. And there's a game that my friend loves to play. I think it's Arena Breakout, and those sort of games. So a lot of people had a lot of issues sort of like getting into the game. But overall, critics gave it solid ratings. It was a very well rated game overall. So then my question to Taye and to, of course, the chat is, so has Sony's live service experiment, do you think it's been successful?
No. Based on their scope that they wanted, the answer is no. I would even argue and say, like, if you want to take in Helldivers 2 and its massive success, like it's huge. Like how many copies has Ark Raiders sold?
But I'd have to look that up. But last time I checked, it was something like over 8 million.
So Ark Raiders has sold 15 million copies.
Yeah, so that sounds right.
To put that into perspective, that's a hugely successful game.
And I bet you didn't cost 250 million to make.
Yeah, but Helldivers 2 has sold 20 million copies. Like, I don't think people understand that for a lot of these live service games, what you're really looking for is something to bring in a lot of high revenue in. And Sony managed to sell 20 million copies with limited access. They didn't drop it day one on every platform. They just dropped it on PlayStation and PC, then eventually on Xbox, right? So Ark Raiders is hugely successful, more successful than Ark Raiders. Sorry, Helldivers is hugely successful. I think the issue here is that a lot of duds. And from a financial perspective, Bungie's game, Marathon, clearly cost a lot to make, and probably was not the financial investment success that they wanted it to be. But you also got to put into perspective, how many other live service games has come out that people are still playing now? Like, if I was to go on, Steam right now and check, how many people are playing Helldivers 2, are more people playing Helldivers 2 than Battlefield? Maybe. I think these are important here. So has it been a failure? Yes, in the grand scheme of things, but it got some W's for sure in Helldivers 2. But overall, yes, it's been a failure. Now, what happens to Marathon going forward? They'll keep it around, but if these numbers keep dropping, don't be afraid. Don't be surprised if Marathon kicks the bucket. They could do something like, okay, let's try to improve it, but just depending on how much it costs to maintain this game, I don't know if they can. I don't know if they will. Like, Helldivers 2 will just be infinitely cheaper to maintain than Marathon, and Marathon seems like it's capped. It seems that's what it is. And remember, Marathon came out everywhere. Well, listen, save the game. Save the games media. Not save the games media. Save video games. Stop killing video games. I would just love it if, like, Sony didn't kill off Marathon and they said, they just gave it to the players to do whatever they wanted to do with it. So,
knowing Sony, they don't do that with their games. They just, when they shut something down, they shut that shit down, and they don't waste time. They don't do this delay. They don't give you hope. They just say, okay, we're done. We're finished. We're cutting our losses. We're moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, no, true.
Okay, cool. So my follow-up question to that is, so what happens now, Ty? Like, I've just given you, and this is their most successful, I'll say, outside Helldivers 2, which again was already an existing IP, multiplayer IP that, with a smaller budget, even the marketing for it was more creative than expensive. I mean, this is another one of their, these Jim, was it Jim Pro? Sorry, Jim. What's his name? Jim Ryan's, dream, whatchamacallit, pivot, or the dream pitch for to move towards live services. So, what now? Like we've seen that, like for instance, the ones that were not organic, like Helldivers, which is only Helldivers. Every other one, they've put all their money, their resources, the experience behind it. They've bought studios to facilitate this. They've spent the literal majority of the PS5 generation so far focusing on these experiences, as there's been very limited single player experiences released. What now? Guys, what do you guys think? Raichi? Fuzzy?
I'll
What
answer
happened?
that in like 2 minutes. Just need to go do something real quick.
No problem. Because the main issue that I have with like where Sony finds themselves right now is that, do they pivot back to just being single player focused? Which again, I don't see them not doing that, because if you're looking at what they've been doing now, especially the beginning of this year, it looks like they're rolling back a lot of their strategies that they put into place, or that were put into place by the likes of Jim Ryan. They sort of trying to sort of renegotiate those things with their fan base and say, okay, cool, we understand you guys are not into this. Let's move back to what you guys are interested in. But how do you do that? Let's go to the chat. So Rachie says the narrative with the games going to PC was for Xbox Studios making more money. The narrative with games going to PlayStation was to finance Game Pass. The Game Pass goes up then Game Pass goes up to $30, 100%. So I'm complete agreement with you here, Rachie, that originally, for me, it made sense why Xbox and PC, that marriage made sense to me. I just didn't feel that Xbox. I think if you were going to do that back in the day, starting with the Xbox One, you still need to do some sort of like differentiation between why or why should you still buy this game on Xbox, and why should you still have even if you have, like for instance, a PC, why should you buy this game primarily on Xbox? And then if you do buy it on PC, what would be the benefits, or what would separate the PC version from the Xbox version? That way you give your customer base both a good reason to buy both versions of the game, instead of just, you know what, I'll take the PC one instead of the Xbox one because it's probably going to be better in almost every way. And graphics will be better. It will have, suppose not better support, but yeah, you can mod it and you can do all these other things. Fuzzy says, yeah, PlayStation working closely with all these Chinese devs was the smartest decision either the company made. That is a brilliant point that you bring up there, Fuzzy. This investment that Sony has put behind a lot of those Asian studios coming up, which is mostly the Chinese ones. I forgot what there's called the Hero Project. That is a brilliant strategy, because if you look at like who supported PlayStation this entire generation, it has been second-party games or third-party games published and polished by Sony. I put it to you that if Crimson Desert had taken the Sony deal, we'd be having a very different discussion about Crimson Desert in terms of like the polish of the game and the end game results. It would have easily been an 88 rated game. Not because journalists are biased, simply because Sony is very good at polishing third party. Case in point, Stellar Blade is one of those examples. Richie says, yes, there we go. It's the Hero Project. A Hero Project game Sony takes credit for when it succeeds and then distances itself from it. Because you can do that. Because you have the luxury to do that, is to sort of like, hey, look at what we did. We helped discover this game. And if it's not, that makes sense to me. I think, to me, that is a very nice way to do it. Because again, you've already helped the studio establish themselves. You've helped them market the game. You gave them funds to help them push the game out the gate. So it's not like you're doing anything wrong. You're just cutting your losses where they are. I have no problem with that. Rachie adds that the Hero Project is now in India, Africa, and Korea. There we go. I think I should look into this. I'll go and do some research into this and see how do I get involved in the Hero Project here on the African continent. How do we get this power of the hero project here?
I'm back.
Yeah, so we're just talking about the hero project and what it's done for Sony. And Rachel was making some, spot on points when it comes to what's been happening with PlayStation and some of their most recent decisions. So please go ahead, Ty, let us know what now.
One of the fun
Huh?
back.
Where do we go from here? So the question before you left was,
You
so
go.
how do
You
they
go back
course
to
correct?
where you were pre 2018
Yeah.
2019. Like everybody goes back to what they were doing pre 2018 2019, which means one, the resources are reduced, right? So that's number one. Two, you start allocating more resources towards single player games and marketing strategies.
Mhm.
I've always kind of said this before, but like people need to understand that just because you see 10 live service games being made doesn't mean those resources are going to be allocated towards 10 single player games.
No, absolutely not.
And I was telling one of my guys is that, like, if you look at the studio's outputs themselves, like Santa Monica is apparently making 2 games, and those are 2 single player games. Naughty Dog is making apparently 2 or 3 games. 2 of them are single player games. Oh, and the live service one got cancelled. Insomniac, yeah, you're right. They were making a live service game, but they were also making Wolverine, Miles Morales, Ratchet and Clank, and Spider-Man 2. So people make it seem like all these studios have just pivoted towards live service. No, they actually grew, and so their core games were still being made. And in addition to that, an additional single player game was being made along with a live service game. So, like, Naughty Dog went from making 1 game to 3 games. 2 of them are single player games. Same thing for all the other studios. Now, there are some studios like obviously Sony Bend, and that they were making multiplayer games. Yeah, but that's gonna happen. That's going to be a thing. The only studio that I think you can probably point to that say like, yo, like this has affected them in some way is probably Guerrilla Games, because they were kind of probably working on the multiplayer side of things. But I like, honestly, I don't even buy that. I refuse to believe that the whole of Guerrilla Games was working on that multiplayer game. It's just not true. Like, they clearly had different teams splits. So yeah, I don't think this was a huge thing in that sense. But no, they will kind of revert back to making single player titles a lot more, and that'll be their main focus. They're gonna lean into what made them who they are.
Okay, wow. But do you think it's going to be that easy though? Like,
Yeah,
you
for
think
sure.
that this is going to be it's not going to take another 5 to 10 years to get this right.
No, because they have the experience already. Remember, all this was just them branching out.
Okay. So
Yeah.
one last question, or not the last question, but my third question when it comes to Sony and them sort of like trying to turn this around is, why did this fail?
So the reason why it failed has to do with the fact that they don't have the expertise to make what they want or to do whatever they wanted to do. And because they don't have the expertise, there's always going to be a chance of failure. You can't be a studio or a company that makes fighting games like a Bandai Namco. You can't be a Bandai Namco. You're making fighting games, and that team that makes fighting games is now pivoting towards making a racing game. It's just not going to happen. The reason why Guerrilla Games took so long to make Horizon Zero Dawn, it took 7 years, is because they make first-person shooting games. So now you're telling that team, okay, you're going to go from first-person shooting games, which was meant to compete with Halo, and now you got to make a third-person action-adventure RPG game. Now you got to create a whole new world. Now you got to create a whole new mechanic of fighting, right? Now you gotta create new camera angles. Now you gotta create new lore. Now you gotta create climbing mechanics. Now you gotta create combat systems, RPG systems. They don't have the expertise to do this. Oh, you gotta create a new story. You gotta create a dialogue tree that leads to different outcomes. If you don't have the expertise to do these things, you're gonna take longer than ever, and you're probably not gonna get it right. And if you do get it right, it's because you've taken a long time to actually execute it really well. So, people might say this, and they might, agree, disagree, whatever it is, but giving giving Fable to Playground Games, it just, especially like because the new team was created, isn't exactly the best thing to do. Because what it really means is that it's a whole new team, and it's a studio that hasn't made this kind of game before, so they're gonna take a long time to make it. That's why Fable is taking 10 years to make. If you like, I guess one way to put it is this way: if you told the Witcher team, "Yeah, make a Fable game," it wouldn't take 10 years to make, because they already have the expertise to make that kind of game. Yeah. So when Sony did a live service push, they just didn't have the expertise. If you have the expertise, well, then you're likely to fail. It's gonna take a long time.
Yeah. So
like Nintendo as well, right? Nintendo say, "Hey, we want to start making mature RPG games." Hey, good luck with that, bruh.
So, guys, if you just joined us, please hit the like and subscribe if this is your first time here. So, sorry, I'm a little bit distracted by this gameplay in the back here. So, this is Samson. And this game, just by watching the gameplay, I don't know if this is like before the day one patch came out. This is a rough game. Like, I've seen so many stutters, so many glitches, NPCs just losing it. And again, there's a lot of driving here to me that just doesn't make... I don't know, it doesn't add value. Like, I get why you would do this. The only thing I like about this game is that the driving seems very linear. In other words, the city is it's not like GTA where it's very wide open. It feels very clustered, which to me I like. It's very closed. That would be to its benefit. But other than that, I don't see anything that's particularly interesting or exciting. I don't know, has anyone picked up the game? Fuzzy says Playground hired a lot of people from CD Projekt Red to work on Fable, so they kind of agree with you. Yeah, but the thing is, again, now you have to create a team. You have to sort of like work on, synergizing, building that team environment, and so it's a little bit. It's better to just go prepaid. So I do agree with Taye there. Taye, did you have any interest in the Samson game before I take it off the screen, because it's kind of boring?
I didn't, but like again, it does look okay to me. Like it looks like a game that I could pick up and play.
It's $25.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good price point. If the game had better maybe mission structure, a better story, if the execution in terms of the actual technical side of things was a lot better, I could see myself playing. I could see people playing it, especially if it's a short game. But a lot of people were saying that like I was on the Samsung Reddit page, and the fans, the people who actually want the game to succeed, they were posting glitches, and they were like, "This feels like a game that just wasn't completed. Like it feels like the game was just lacking. Like the game is like an extra 2 years."
Agreed. So what I would do with this game is that, to me, this strikes me. I don't know if I was talking to you about this time, but this strikes me as a Game Pass game. This is a sort of game that Microsoft could help push out the gate. That money that Game Pass payday would definitely have helped ship a much more finished product, similar to something like Atomic Heart. I think that's what this game needed to at least be, because this is that 70 territory, that 70, mid 70 or 7 out of 10 territory that is the sweet spot for Game Pass. And no offense, I'm not hating on Game Pass, I'm just saying. This would have really benefited from a service like that, and it's $25. So I think they would have still made their money back and had a better reviewed product and probably had more legs. Because now it's just, if it doesn't get an audience, it'll probably fade into obscurity soon. Okay, cool. So we are making very good time here, Ty, and please, I will follow your guidance today because I know you're still in the hospital. As to how long we need to go, and how short. So we've discussed the Xbox fandom. We've discussed the Marathon Saga, as well as Sony's live service misadventure. That is really, really, I think it's Sony. I think this generation scored a lot of like own goals, more than any other generation since the PS3, and hopefully they've learned from that. But Sony, the one thing that they have on their side is they just have these loyal people in terms of like brand. Like Sony fans barely ever have issues with what the brand does. A lot of them I know are very casual, so they don't even know a lot of this stuff or a lot of these decisions. To them, it's just as long as it's got the PlayStation logo on it, let's go. So they're lucky. They're very fortunate that they've really created an almost bulletproof brand, similar to what Nintendo has done in the last, I would say, decade and a half. Is they've really made those brands bulletproof when it comes to gaming. So Ty, the other thing that the other big sort of like agenda item is the closing of Amazon Luna. So do you have any thoughts as someone that used to be a user of Stadia? I believe Luna was literally verbatim copy and paste when initially launched anyway, structured to be like Stadia. And of course, Stadia, face planted out the gate. What are your thoughts when it comes to Luna and their predicament?
So this did take me by surprise to an extent, but I think once you look into Amazon's goal and their success with cloud gaming, you can kind of see maybe that the writing's on the wall. Now, to be clear, Amazon owns AWS, so they can synergize all the cloud stuff with it. However, it's been quite clear
So
that
just focus through that. They own what?
AWS, which is their it's similar to Azure, so it's like their cloud
their
infrastructure.
Okay, yeah.
So these things are great because you can synergize, right? The problem with Luna is, one, it wasn't actually available in many places. It wasn't available here in Ireland. So success was so that was issue number one. Issue number two, I don't think it was actually from a quality perspective it was doing that well. What Amazon Luna allowed you to do is it's a very interesting structure. Is that you could buy games from them. You could stream games from Ubisoft storefronts, from different subscription services as well. And you could also like buy games that you could own from Amazon, and they also gave you like their own like monthly PlayStation Plus games. What they've decided to do is to drop their purchasing part of things. So now you just can't buy games, and you can't use Luna for subscription services. What Luna is now is essentially Game Pass Ultimate. There's a curated version of games that you can play on a monthly basis, and that's it. So it's a subscription service now to play games. It's basically Netflix now, which is kind of what Game Pass is. Except obviously Microsoft has been expanding xCloud to purchase titles. Is this a good? I mean, it's a bad thing overall. However, if you look at like the stagnation of Luna, and I think it did stagnate, and the growth was coming primarily from Stadia. Sorry, Richie says, come on, Taye. Samsung is biblical, yet you call it Samsung. When I said it, I was like, I'm saying this wrong. I know I'm saying this wrong, but whatever. No one's going to catch it.
The illness.
But Richie, nothing gets past you, bro.
Blame it on the illness.
Fuzzy says he's never heard of this game until it came out on Metacritic and got a 50. Damn. this is what I mean. Like marketing is bad. Like because you and I just have fuzzy, just be like, oh, I'm on Xbox or I'm on Steam, and oh, there's this guy called Samsung. Let me just buy it. But now that he's seen the 50 Metacritic, he ain't touching that shit. So I understand why some of these devs are like, man, listen, our game sucks. don't give these reviewers a copy, man. Make them work for it.
Mm.
But yeah, so Luna is basically just back down now to Game Pass. Now, will they actually cancel it? I don't know if they want to do that, because I think there's a part of them that says, and I think Sony's maybe even thinking the same way, that at some point cloud will become better. Now, is it going to take off in 2030, 2035? And when it does, we want to have a foundation there that we can scale up to start doing this. So I think that's what they might be doing here. They could completely shut it down and say, let's focus on something different. Let's focus back on TV. Let's focus on other elements that we think is going to show more growth. And this is kind of something I said some time ago, that the reason why Amazon did this with cloud is because it was the cheapest way to get into gaming, because gaming is a mature market, or it's close to being a mature market. If they made a console, I promise you, it would have done way worse. Because even Amazon's exclusive games didn't do anything. Like they shut them all down eventually, because this ain't it. Like gaming is very, very hard to get into, and a lot of these studios have the expertise already. Like, and if you want to, to pull a FIFA or a Bethesda game from other platforms, like that's gonna cost you money, like a lot of money. I think for even Amazon, it's like, we might as well just invest that money into TV and movies instead. Like we have MMG, we have Amazon Prime. Gaming just seems too intense right now. I think a lot of these guys are figuring this out.
Yeah,
I will say this: the perfect strategy for streaming is the hybrid model, and that is merging what GeForce Now does and merging what's not really what Xbox is doing, but similar to what Xbox is doing. So to explain that a little bit, on GeForce Now allows you to play any of your games on Steam and Epic, right? So you subscribe to GeForce Now and you can play your own game. This is the easiest way to get people to try, because people don't have a fear of like, oh, I'm losing my games. People want to own their games, and they believe Steam is going to own their games. So this is just an additional service that lets them play their games anywhere. And if you're telling somebody who has a 3080 that, hey, Elder Scrolls 6 is coming on PC, and you got this weak ass PC, and the parts are going up, but if you subscribe to GeForce Now, we will give you access to a 5080. That person will say, yes, I'm going to try it out. And because the GeForce Now is really good in terms of quality and lag, you will want, like, I played Starfield on GeForce Now. I couldn't go back to console, which it just wasn't going to happen, right?
Yep.
So that's the first thing you should do. The second part is important, which is, the first is right. GeForce Now doesn't have every game, but it has a lot of games, right? But it doesn't have every game. That's true, and they're growing their library. But the second part is really important, which is, I don't know if Microsoft would do this, but I would have said, when somebody buys a game, so offer the GeForce Now service, but when somebody buys a game on your own platform, you let them stream it for free. So listen, Asha, if you watching this, maybe I should just message her privately, say what's up. If somebody buys an Xbox game or even a game on Xbox platform, give them the license to stream it for free. What will happen there is you have cloud gamers who are cloud gamers will come to you because that's a great deal. That's free for them. So now you're growing your ecosystem. But number two, there are players out there who will buy maybe a game on Steam, let's say Mortal Kombat,
Yeah.
or let's say Elder Scrolls, whatever it is,
Mhm.
and they'll take your offer of a the hybrid model just to stream their game with high quality. They do that, they love it, it works. They do it again for a different game. Then maybe the fifth game, they're like, the system actually works, like the service is good. Let me buy the game on their service instead of subscribing to playing all these games, and slowly that's how you start to convert more people. Would they do that? I don't know, but I think that hybrid model works really, really well.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement with you. So the biggest problem with GeForce Now is Nvidia themselves, and the fact that Nvidia's attention hasn't been on gaming for a minute now. Their endeavors, they're like, I don't know what the word is for their success or to describe their success when it comes to data centers and the whole AI boom. I mean, like they literally were so far ahead of everyone. DLSS being like the key example of that. That in terms of like, I mean, if you compare how much they're making from their AI endeavors versus gaming, it's not even close, dude. It's like the difference between, like, I think it's like like 4% of their revenue comes from gaming, 4 or 5%. Like the rest of it is all from AI and data centers, etc., etc. So the reason that service is, in my opinion, not going to grow or not going to develop the way it could have if Nvidia was still a gaming focused company is because of the fact that Nvidia right now is more preoccupied with AI than anything else, and their relationship with gamers is also suffering, and their support for services like GeForce Now is waning, and they're not giving it the sort of attention that they should, in my opinion. Fuzzy says GeForce Now doesn't have all the games. I think you did read that. Richie says you have to access what? You have to access your Steam save files with GeForce. I've never used it. Ty, maybe you are a little bit more familiar with that. Fuzzy also adds that it has the most big games, but it's missing some of the big ones. I subscribed to play Hogwarts only to find out that it wasn't there. Oh, geez, that sucks. It might be there now. Okay, so there is a double-edged sword part of that where you're not perhaps going to get everything that you want, but yeah. But Ty, I just wanted to ask you a question in regards to that. But isn't that what Play Anywhere does for Xbox?
Yeah, no, that's what Play Anywhere does for Xbox, but Play Anywhere, it doesn't involve the cloud part of things. So from Play Anywhere is basically PC and handheld and console.
But Play Anywhere also means for some that includes cloud, does it not?
No. Yeah, sorry, my bad. So it does include cloud, but you need to have a Game Pass subscription ultimate service for cloud.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so there's actually two things here. There is talk that they're looking to separate, and this is what they should have done a long time. Like they should have separated cloud from Game Pass. Have cloud be its own separate thing. So now somebody can just sign up to cloud gaming, just like GeForce Now, and just do it. There's no Game Pass being attached to it, right? So that's what they need to do. However, what I was saying is going a little bit further. I'm saying every game that is purchased on your own platform, Microsoft Store, Xbox PC storefront, comes with a free cloud license to play. So I can boot that game up anywhere. Because now it's actually Play Anywhere. It's actually going further than what Steam is giving you. Because Steam is basically Play Anywhere as well. Like so it's not like, I mean, you might be we're Play Anywhere. Steam's Play Anywhere too. So at this point you say like, well, if you purchase it from our storefront, you can play on your mobile phone. And I think cloud gamers, as they grow, they will probably gravitate towards that more than Steam, because then they have to do a calculation and say like, well, okay, I bought it on Steam, which is cool, but now I gotta subscribe to GeForce Now or Boosteroid or Amazon Luna or X Cloud to play it, pay 20 quid a month. However, if you're giving them the chance to stream it for free on your own platform, no payments attached, in their mind, they still have their hard copy on their PC. So even if cloud shuts down entirely, they still have a hard copy, which is what they really care about. And I think that's enough to make some cloud gamers be like, okay, you know what? Let me go to the Microsoft storefront and get this.
Okay. So, do you still believe that? I suppose you did answer that. You did say that you still believe that cloud has a significant place in the future of gaming, but it's not the plan. Like it's not. It's going back to the conversation that I had with you about walking and chewing. It's that whole thing of like, yeah, well, you can walk and chew, but you need to be taking bite-sized pieces. You can't be having like an entire McDonald's whatchamacallit, uh, what's the burger called? Uh, a Big Mac meal with the soda, with the fries, and walking at the same time. And I think that's what everybody tried to do. I think Google tried to do that. They tried to go all in. Amazon tried to do that. They tried to go all in. And I think Microsoft is probably the biggest sort of culprit of that. Like they went all in. They put all their chips behind, you know, that, or that being the future, basically. And yeah, like it's just, yeah, try these things out, experiment first, see what works and what doesn't, but don't always put all your money behind these sort of things, because when they fail, then the whole thing falls apart. Versus if you just put a significant amount of investment, and then if there is failure, then you still get to walk away unscathed. If you do succeed, then you can scale up. Same thing I would have said, actually, going back to what we're talking about with PlayStation and their live service pivot, inverted commas. I would have just kept looking at what works for us as PlayStation, and Helldivers is what works. And instead of buying Bungie, go to those guys. Same thing that happened with the Arc Raiders guy. Go to those guys and say, okay, cool. I want to replicate the success that you guys had with other franchises or other games. Help us get to where you were. And again, keep in mind that we want to do this within very, very, very experimental, smaller budgets, similar to what you guys had. Help us get these other, live services to that level. What did you guys do? Study from that success, which has always worked for them, is where they study from their own success instead of just trying to do what Xbox does. Which, again, for Xbox to get to where they are with their live services took decades. Was an overnight thing. Cool. So, Taya, wow, I think I'm looking at the time and I'm looking at what we've covered. I think more than any other episode, we've covered most of the topics in a very, very sort of like speedy way. We're 1 hour and 18 minutes. So, yeah, man, like, I think I've exhausted majority. We've spoken about the Helix. We've spoken about Moore's Law is dead. Rumor about a cheaper PlayStation SKU. Did we speak about the cheaper PlayStation SKU?
Cheaper, I mean, in terms of topics that have been trending, one of them was cheaper PlayStation SKU. We haven't spoken about that. The new
Did we
Game
speak about that?
Pass. No, not yet.
Okay, no, because I don't remember us unpacking. So yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so that's still on here. So what else do you have?
There was the Game Pass tier that there'll be a curated version of Xbox games. The Triton will be a Netflix adaptation, and there's also rumors that Call of Duty might be leaving Game Pass Ultimate as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, you have that Xbox Bethesda guy who was like, Bethesda's things have changed and it's soulless, whatever the crap he was talking about. And so he just talk about. I also heard that from someone that like who knows things, that because when somebody brought up, they're like, oh, Game Pass is not doing well. This person said like the Game Pass cost $2 billion to run last year. I made $5 billion. So the person was like, you made $3 billion in profit. So like anyone who says it's not going anywhere, like you don't know anything. They're just numbers. Like these are accountants. Like there's no. Now I wanted to ask the person like because I always said like it's not about is Game Pass profitable. I think that's a ridiculous statement. I think it's very close to profitable. The question for me was always, would it be more profitable if Game Pass didn't exist? And I think the answer to that is, if you get rid of Game Pass, you will lose more money for sure. Especially now that you're trying to create your own ecosystem, you definitely will lose more money because Game Pass is a very good draw factor for
Yeah,
people to
I
come
think
to your
yeah.
ecosystem.
I think if you do away with Game Pass, then you might as well just go the full publisher route, because Game Pass is the glue that is holding the anything to do with Xbox together. In my opinion, it's the
Hmm.
only thing that they have that separates them from just being a publisher. Is that whole Game Pass? Because again, like you can say, well, they have hardware, they're making new hardware. That's again, that's gonna come down to then do we have the games and the reason for the people to play the games on that hardware. And Game Pass is the gateway to all of that. They've sort of like made it instrumental or like, part and parcel of the Xbox brand. The biggest mistake, in my opinion, they would make is if they did away with Game Pass. I don't think that's a good idea. What do you guys think? Do you think Game Pass can go away? Can Microsoft get rid of Game Pass at this point in time, or is the brand too dependent on Game Pass? So Fuzzy says it was good for the most part, but I also had some internet problems during the time, so it was frustrating.
So
As we
he's talking about GeForce Now, because I asked him, and I think he was saying that GeForce Now will be successful. People are going to want to use DLSS5, even with the outrage over it. We're not there yet. Maybe in the future, internet bandwidth is very cheaper, much compression techniques. I paid more than half of Assassin's Creed Valhalla on GeForce Now, and that's when he said that it was good enough. And Richie says Sony Sony took their time with cloud. Here's one of my when Sean Layden was talking about this about cloud, and he was just saying, "Oh, the internet is not there. It's not there," and I just hated this so much because he was saying it's not there, and I was talking about different countries that don't have strong internet. The problem here is what you need to do is you need to go and say, what is the internet like in Europe, in the United States, and in Asia, and Africa, everywhere. Then you need to say, what was it like 15 years ago, 20 years ago? And it's improved, clearly. It's improved, number one. Number two, it's also, and look at when the improvements happened. Was a huge improvement and a huge range covered over the last 7 years. And look at mobile internet as well. Look how many people are getting unlimited. And if you, like I did this already, there's a huge change in internet coverage in Europe, in improvement and scale over the last 10 years. Not just people who didn't have internet before, but now they have internet and they have good internet. And I was looking at this data and I was all like, did Lady look at this? Because he's saying Fuzzy's saying right there, they're like, oh well, I don't like have it. And I've realized like Americans I've spoken to seem to not have great internet.
Well, yeah, sorry to interrupt you. It just varies, I think, when it comes to America. It's very similar to what we have here. It depends where you're situated and the infrastructure within that area. You don't have like a uniform sort of like, well, everything's great when it comes to our infrastructure. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's like kind of it. Like, yeah, you're right. It varies. And I just feel like he hasn't looked at the numbers. He hasn't looked at the trajectory as to where things are going and how things are improving. And this was just my issue with people who talk about, because I feel like anybody you ask about cloud, they'll automatically say, no, everyone has good internet. It's not going to work. Okay, well, not everyone has one motherfucking 1,000 euros to buy a console. But guess what? You don't say it doesn't work. Oh, it's just because I remember listening to this podcast and this guy was saying like, well, India can't really, they don't have great internet, and neither does Africa. I'm like, when did we ever use Africa or Pakistan or India as a representation for an industry? Like if most people in India can't afford,
I'm hurt.
Yeah, screw you. Facts are facts, bruh. Like if someone says like, well, most people in Africa can't afford a console, it's like, okay, so what, should consoles not exist? Most people in Europe can't afford a console. Should consoles not exist? Do you know what I mean? I just thought the whole thing was silly. So I feel like the cloud arguments are very disingenuous, and it just really comes from a lack of understanding on anything. And I get it. People don't maybe like it. Like I mean, when Amazon Luna was like, closing or some other parts were closing down, there were so many people that were happy, and I was like, why? Why are you happy that something that is closing that you don't have any involvement in? Like, what is this thing? And then I just realized, like, oh, it's gamers. Oh, obviously, it's like, what do I expect?
We're
Fucking
gatekeepers,
gamers.
bro.
Terrible people. But yeah, yeah.
Depends who you ask. So Fuzzy says, like 15 years ago, government gave AT&T a shitload of money to put fiber internet in tons of places, and they just never did it and pocketed the money. That's an interesting story. So Fuzzy, I assume that you're in the States. I want to understand something. Isn't it, in my understanding of how this whole thing worked and why America was so quick, or America had fast internet quicker than anyone else in the world, what happened to cable? Wasn't cable how most households in America were accessing, like, broadband in terms of like high speed internet? Can someone explain? Like, can someone who perhaps is an American just explain to me, like, because I always thought that was the shortcut to getting great internet in America, and how America, was sort of like ahead of the curve when it came to this. But I clearly am missing something there. Okay. So any more thoughts on? So we've just covered the you were talking about like cloud and its expansion. Sorry, what was the original topic there, Ty?
It was cloud gaming, and then we kind of moved towards Game Pass or something. Well, no, PlayStation. PlayStation was the main topic.
Was it not a specific topic that you brought up because we've exhausted the majority of our topics?
It was Game Pass. So there's a few Game Pass talking points, which is there's rumors that they remove Call of Duty, and there's rumors that the specific tier, the Triton tier, which is just Xbox games, might be added towards Netflix.
That's what it was. It was the whole Netflix thing, and the fact that there might be an additional tier based on that. Look, that's a great, like, there's so many things that you could do with Xbox, but again, I just think you need to be clear as to what you're trying to do here. And this is what I would love to really understand, and we won't know this until they put this plan into action, is what is Xbox's end game? What is their goal? Right? What is a win? Like, and I've asked you this question before, is what are the win conditions for Xbox? Because for Sony, pretty simple and straightforward. For Nintendo, the win conditions are pretty simple and straightforward. Xbox's approach is very similar to, like, for instance, how Facebook approached Meta, and how a lot of companies are approaching AI. You don't really see, for me, the win conditions. I get them theoretically, but I don't see them as a thing that you can do tomorrow. Right? I see them as a long end game plan that's gonna you in this for the long haul. You're planning like this and you're strategizing like this because you see this bearing fruit in 20 years, 30 years, 50 years even. So that's where I'm at with that. Okay, cool. So aside from Game Pass, Tying, and of course the story that you did bring up here about Pete Hines saying that Bethesda isn't part of something genuine and authentic at Microsoft. He quit after he felt powerless to do what I think needs to be done to run this place properly. That is a quote from Pete Hines. Can we move on to that story? Happy to unpack that. Tyre?
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. So, what are your thoughts? First, tell us a little bit about, because I know that you've got quite a bit of knowledge when it comes to this, reading about him. So, tell us about like what his role was at Bethesda before even Microsoft came into the picture, when they were still just ZeniMax, and they were, I think, privately owned or privately run at the time.
So Pete's role within Xbox, within Bethesda, was a marketing strategy. So he was dealing with the communications part of the game of Xbox. I'm sorry, Bethesda games. He wasn't actually developing games. I don't know if he played the games. I'm sure he did. I don't know if he gave advice, but he wasn't a creative. That's Todd Howard basically.
Mhm.
So when he says these things, about he couldn't do what he wanted to do, things are changing. Very, very negative things about the people in charge. It's kind of hard to understand what it means, but it kind of comes across like there's creative decisions being made or business decisions. And I think from a business point of view, I would like to know what those decisions are. But everything is kind of coming across as creative. And it almost seems to like absolve Bethesda and push a lot of blame onto Microsoft. But then the question is, well, what are we talking about here, right? So the first thing I'll say is, for many Bethesda fans, Fallout 4 was a step back. It wasn't, as good as they thought it would be. So that's just number one. That wasn't on the Microsoft. That was on the Xbox. Number two, Fallout 76 released not with Xbox. It was under under Bethesda. So you have two titles that just haven't really done anything crazy. Then you had, you can start to include things like Ghostwire Tokyo, which didn't meet expectations, right? You start including things like even what's the game by Shingami? Evil
Which
Within
one?
2. That was under Bethesda again. That didn't do
Oh,
the numbers.
Mikami, yeah. Sorry, I thought
That
you said Shingami.
that didn't do well as well. So it's like, what game are you talking about? Okay, Redfall, sure, came out on Microsoft, but from what we heard from Jason Schreier's reporting, they were hoping, the developers were hoping that Xbox would come in and shut that game down. This wasn't about Bethesda. They were hoping Xbox, because Bethesda wasn't shutting it down. Bethesda was doing whatever the hell they wanted to do. In fact, Bethesda was running themselves pretty much. So again, Redfall, I would still put on the Bethesda. In the same way, I would put Starfield on the Bethesda. But here's the thing: I would even argue that because of Xbox, Starfield got delayed. Starfield was able to be given more time.
I agree.
Three more times. So the only thing I can say that Xbox did materially, it seems, is they actually improved Bethesda from a Starfield point of view. And if you talk about creative decisions, well, the only games that released under Xbox that you could even put down to creative decisions from Xbox is Doom: The Dark Ages, which is an 83 on Metacritic, and Indiana Jones, which is a 85, 86, and 87. Oh, sorry, 88, 87, 86 on Metacritic as well. So as far as I'm concerned, Bethesda has been good under Xbox. And the only bad I can think about is under Bethesda themselves. So I have no idea what he's talking about.
That's very based, what you're saying. Because I'm very much aware, and a lot of people forget. Huh? Am I muted?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. So a lot of people forget that, again, same with Activision Blizzard. When Xbox bought Bethesda, it was Phil coming to the rescue because it was a shit show. They just dropped Fallout 76, which was an epic cluster F. And before that, they dropped Elder Scrolls Online, which was also received. So they were doing a lot of things, like ZeniMax's shareholders at that time. They were literally trying to loot as much revenue from those IPs as possible. Because I'm sure they were trying to piece out the same way, I would say, like, for instance, Bobby Kotick was doing towards the closing or the shutdown of or the sell-off, of Activision Blizzard. So they were not in a positive, like, the way that he puts it is like they were winning. No, they were not winning. Like, this is where I completely agree with you that Pete is misrepresenting how this went down. Mm-hmm. Microsoft, Phil, or Daddy Phil came to save them. Without Phil, they would have been a far worse off position than they are now. And Microsoft's money did something for Bethesda that had never happened before, which is a huge title like Starfield to launch in a completed state. To your point, they were the one that Microsoft sanctioned the game being delayed, and it's the most polished. You can fault Starfield for a lot of things, but it's the most polished creation engine game at launch in their history, in their recent history, anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that, in fact, I would go as far to add to what you're saying. I would go as far as saying that out of all the companies that Microsoft has bought, companies like, let me not say companies like, let me say specifically, Bethesda has probably benefited the most from their resources because they're already a fully functioning organization. They just needed the money to grease the right sort of wheels and, you know, make certain things a little bit easier and whatever. And they did that for Bethesda. They've been supporting Bethesda from day one. And Bethesda, on the other hand, has failed, including Pete Hines, who, mind you, was there during that whole Redfall's saga that we went through. He was the guy that was in charge. I can't remember what his role was at that time, but he was part of the leadership that was responsible for okaying games like that. For him to come now, and you can blame Phil for a lot of things, but Phil has always supported. Like, I think out of every studio that Xbox has under its umbrella, very few studios have received the sort of support that Bethesda had continually. The only other studio I would say that Xbox is even more concerned about than Bethesda is, of course, Activision Blizzard, because it's such a huge freaking investment for them. But no one else has received that sort of support from, you know, all these other studios. Well, let me not say support, but things have not worked out for anyone else as much as they've done for Bethesda under Microsoft.
For sure, I think Bethesda has gotten a lot of good things from Xbox. When I say good things, I mean like they're in a much better position. Here's another example. Don't be surprised if, because remember, the rumors were saying that like Xbox is giving more financial aid to Bethesda to sponsor Fallout, because they identify Fallout as a big franchise to expand upon, right? The reason why you probably didn't see multiple Fallout games being made and Elder Scrolls and Starfield, whatever, is because Todd is very, very big. And he's probably telling them, like, no, I'm the one who's making Fallout. I'm the one who's making Elder Scrolls. And until Elder Scrolls is, until we finish Elder Scrolls, you ain't going to get Fallout. I won't be surprised if Microsoft said, nah, bro, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Like, we're not gonna wait 12 to 15 years for a new Fallout game, all because you want to spend an extra 7 years making Elder Scrolls 6. Someone just has to make it. Create a separate team now to do it, or give it to a different developer. I would not be surprised if that was Microsoft's mandate, and I'm saying that's a good thing for the players, because I don't know if Bethesda was still under, like, you know, the current leadership or whatever, I don't know if those shareholders are pressuring Todd like that, because he's the creative, he's the person who's that important. But because this Microsoft is bigger than Bethesda, and because Amy Hood ain't playing around, and because Sacha ain't playing around, they're telling him, nah, sorry, bruh. Like, right here, right now, you got to bring us a new Fallout game. So I would say, under like, out of every other listen, there is no developer that has been under Xbox that hasn't benefited or given the chance to succeed.
Or looted. Or looted millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everything is like taken to that statement. The only problem you can say is that if they were being managed better by different, you know, company, like maybe a Sony or Nintendo, some of them would have had better games out there, or they would have, they wouldn't have had to like shut down or cancel those games, right? That's the only thing you could say. But from a financial point of view and a creative freedom point of view, Xbox gave them everything that they wanted. It was on them to turn that into success. And a lot of them failed.
Sorry, I'm just reading the chat, and Richie concurs with what we're saying. There's just one comment here. It says here,
scam Microsoft.
yeah, all those studios scam Microsoft. I really
They
think
did. They really did.
how are you making how are you making a game for 10 years and you don't even have like your slice of life? Is that what they call it? For slice of life for the game is like a 15-minute thing. Not even 15 minute. I think it was like a 10-minute thing that you guys made on the fly, and you've had 10 years. Like people have just been collecting salary for no reason. It's so fun. I find it. I find it so funny, and I think we're talking about State of Decay while we're on the subject. Isn't that the same case with State of Decay? Didn't you say
Yeah,
to me
State
that
of
like
Decay is nearly
yeah
11, 10 to 11 years or something like that, man. But like, I mean, like, yeah, that there's something, yeah, there's something going on there.
like I think you know what as much as like I will always say this, like Phil is probably one of the greatest and the most representative executives when it comes to someone that is a player and like in terms of like being one of us, that whole he's one of us thing. But dude, the guy needed to go. Like some of those decisions to me are just they just bizarre.
But you see,
Like they
what I would say is like this is what you get when you have somebody who's more game centric and more like nice or let the developers cook. Like I would even say this. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people who are criticizing Phil would have fallen into the same trap because they're the same people who would have said the same thing years ago, which is let the devs cook, let the devs cook. Oh,
yeah, but
couples are stepping in to kind of like screw up the fun. I think the exact same thing would have happened.
so again, I wouldn't say that he was because he failed the gamers like several times. Like my only the one thing I would differ with you when it comes to that is that that is not the sentiment from the players. Players at some point in time become impatient when you fail to deliver and you haven't been delivering, and that was like what the whole Xbox has no game sentiment came from. And Phil's entire thing, his entire pitch was he needed to address that. That was the urgent thing that he needed to address. So you buying studios, we're thinking, okay, cool. This is you buying these studios because they've got things that they're working on that are ready to go. That when the next Series XS launches, you've got all the stuff ready. It's been baking. You've been cooking, and it turned out that like in actuality, nothing was cooking, and that's where I think he failed. Because if you're going to buy a studio, I would assume that one of the key things that you need to do is you need to look at their portfolio in terms of what they're working on, and you need to look at like what are you interested in and what talks to your audience and your portfolio of upcoming releases. I don't think anyone at Xbox ever did that, and to me, that's not no gamer looks at like Xbox's track record from the Xbox One up until the early Series X and says, yeah, let them cook for longer. It's like, no, like all these things come out half baked anyway.
No.
So that sentiment only benefits developers, and I think developers, especially like for instance within the Xbox camp, and actually just across the board, a lot of people are losing faith in developers being able to cook, especially when it comes to these quadruple A games. Uh, Xbox's case in point of that is that like whenever they're making this quadruple A game, it never materializes, or it ends up being something like Forza Motorsport. That was pitched as like a quadruple A game, but when it came out, it was just another Forza game. Did not have any of the quality, not just quality of life improvements, but we expected so much of a next generation racer. It just was another game. So yeah, yes. So anything else, Tai, that you want to add on that topic of Xbox and Bethesda and Pete Hines' opinion?
No, I think without knowing exactly what he's talking about, but we can see from the leaked emails that he wasn't happy that Starfield was going to be exclusive, but ABK games were not going to be exclusive. I think these are some of the things that Xbox was dealing with, where like some of the studios that they purchased, they wanted the games to be multi-platform, and especially given the fact that they had maybe higher margins, and maybe it was a case of eventually they were pressuring Xbox like, yo, we want to be a multi-platform, like but again, this is where I would have said, listen, stop asking me stupid questions, okay? Like, end of story. You're not going multi-platform. They're like, well, how are we gonna get to the margins? Well, how about you make a goddamn fucking game that's gonna fucking meet those margins? Like, it's just Like I sound like a fucking lunatic and I'm laughing like crazy because that just seems like the obvious answer.
Exactly.
Like, can you imagine like somebody going to like one of the Nintendo or PlayStation developers saying like, "Yo, you want us to like sell 50 million copies?" And Sony and Nintendo's like, "Yeah, we do." They're like, "Oh, but you know, our like game, which is very like indie and arty, isn't really gonna do that. It's not those kind of games. So can we just like go multi-platform so we can kind of get to that number as fast as possible?" They're gonna laugh at you. They're gonna say, "You know what? You're shut down. Bye bye. They just take those funds and repurpose it to a different developer who isn't taking the piss." That just seems like the easiest thing to say. Like it just seems like a normal answer, but it feels like Xbox were just kind of like, "Yeah, okay, sure." What do you mean, sure?
Oh, I agree. Agreed.
What do you mean? Like, no. The way you get to those numbers is you release a game that can get to those numbers. And we'll take into account that you can't get to those numbers because our player base is smaller, but your game needs to bring in sales or consoles. And we're going to, account for that with our smaller user base. But your game needs to bring in like 1 million new consoles or like 500k new consoles or whatever it is, or maybe like 1 million new Game Pass players. Like there needs to be like expectations set, and unfortunately they weren't. It was just a case of like, okay, well, you guys can do whatever the hell you want. Like, yeah, it's just bad management.
So again, I think this is a perfect pivot then to probably one of our last topics. If there's nothing else. So then the main thing, or the main question then would be, where does that leave Call of Duty when it comes to, and this is of course referring to the rumor. I don't think it's confirmed yet that Microsoft is considering removing Call of Duty from day and date Game Pass. I mean, if they do that, I think that would inform, or it would help them make a better decision as to what can they do with the pricing of Game Pass. Because I think Call of Duty is one of the key reasons why you saw such a drastic increase in pricing. So what are your thoughts when it comes to Call of Duty and Game Pass?
Call of Duty helped Game Pass grow to the extent that they wanted. Probably not. I think people forget that Call of Duty and Game Pass did extremely well the year it launched on Game Pass. And so people have very short-term memories. It actually broke records, and from a revenue point of view was one of the strongest as well. So nobody was talking about Game Pass hurting it back then. But then the next year, where the Call of Duty game was trash and it didn't do well, then it was all Game Pass's fault. Jason Schreier made a statement, a random point in his article once, saying that like somebody said that like they lost 300 million from putting it on Game Pass. Everybody just ran with that, and all I could think was like, yeah, but obviously you're gonna by putting the game as an exclusive to a platform, aka PlayStation, you're gonna lose millions from possible sales. That's not a
Final Fantasy.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 16. You put your game on your game goes on Game Pass. Like, you know what? High on Life 2, they made actually a comment about this. I don't know if you saw it, but they were talking about how the comedic guy was like saying like, oh, you're probably playing our game on one of those subscriptions, instead of buying our games, which is bad. Yeah. But then again, I guess we did get paid millions to put this game on it. We're actually getting paid, right?
Yes, it's not free.
The question is, I would say this, like, okay, they lost 300 million, but how much revenue did Call of Duty bring in from Game Pass subscriptions? Number one, how much revenue did they bring in from people who were engaging in the microtransactions? Number two, number three, how much revenue did it bring in from people who are potentially going to unsubscribe from Game Pass and then chose to stay within? Now, all this needs to be accounted for the people who actually were not going to play the game or purchase the game. And I have this number here. I actually think I might have I didn't send it to you, but I have some data here. Let me see if I can get it real quick.
So while you're looking for that, Rachie says Microsoft and Sony did so bad, or did such a bad job this generation. Most of gaming is on gotcha games. There's a lot of truth to this, Rachie, and this is what contributed to like the growth of Epic Games, the storefront. So I really think that this pursuit of, again, like I really want to understand. I get from Sony's perspective, them pursuing live services, but they completely took the ball or the eye of what was core to their own experiences. If I was Sony, I would have, like, and I think I think Ty has brought this up to me. I would have looked at either purchasing or looking at other, smaller versions of like companies like Hoyoverse as they were developing. Like there was a huge opportunity for them to sort of buy these studios that can build these experiences at the time when these studios were still relatively small and cheap to buy.
Yeah.
And I think they just waited too long, and they gave nothing to counter this offering, but they knew that they needed to. And by the time they tried to do it, they just went all in and spent way too much money trying to do it themselves, buying big publishing houses like Bungie, instead of splitting that money and getting these smaller publishers that were doing all this gotcha stuff around 2015. 2015 is literally when a lot of this started like really, really taking off. Around the same time that Fortnite started taking off as well. So around 2015, up until about like I would say 2019, because that's when I think PlayStation really sort of like they knew that they'd hit it out the park. Then they should have started looking at like, okay, cool. So what's the next thing? Okay, live services are super like popular with like kids or the upcoming markets. So how do we use our IPs in that space first, and then get those same people to support those IPs on our consoles? But nobody really did that. I don't think neither Xbox nor Sony tried that approach. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think the only company that I think Bethesda, you could argue, out of all the purchases that's happened, obviously Compulsion was bought, Ninja 3 was bought, all these, Double Fine was bought. None of these studios did that. Like they didn't become like Insomniac, I mean? So that's number one. Obsidian, you could say they improved on the Xbox in terms of, giving them at least a cadence of games. However, as we've seen, Valve didn't do the numbers, and now the Outer Worlds 2. So did they really actually get some value there? I think Obsidian's value is more long-term focus, and I think they added some value towards Game Pass for sure. So I would actually say Obsidian is a very good buy, even though like they didn't meet the expectations or numbers. And I think Grounded 2, 1 and 2 has done relatively really well for them. You could argue that A World's Edge is another studio that like they've grown on with them in terms of dollar to dollar value. They're quite high on that list. But in terms of like picking up a studio that was going to be really big and huge, they don't really have that. And I think Bethesda's not that studio. They're not that studio because if they were making a Fallout game, along with Starfield or whatever it is, and it was coming out soon, then I think you could make that argument. But yeah, you're right. None of them have picked up any studio. They all picked them up a little bit too late for that. The only company that has really actually purchased a studio that ended up growing to a massive scale was Microsoft, and that was with Minecraft. That was with Mojang.
Yeah, Rach raises a very important point here. It says many people found comfort in Genshin Impact during the pandemic, and this experience was on PlayStation. Xbox had opportunity to have Genshin Impact as an exclusive. And again, to me, I just don't present this just as to Xbox, Richie, but also to Sony. Sony at some point identified that, for us to be able to, make these quadruple A super games like Last of Us, we need something to fund this. So I don't understand why they didn't double down. And I don't even know like how much I would actually. I suppose it's worth looking into, like how much a company like Hoyoverse would have cost to buy, let's say, in 2019 or in 2020 or 2021, because you could see the trend. You could see that, wow, these and again, everyone wants to make these live services, and Jim Ryan was having these thoughts, I'm sure, in the 2015s and the 2019s. So, but they didn't act on it. They did nothing. They did a whole bunch of other stuff, but they didn't act on that.
Yeah,
Whereas, to
they're
your
all a
point,
bit too slow with it. But you see, at the same time, they all thought the industry was growing. So every single purchase they made,
this
they
is weird.
thought these guys are all going to grow regardless.
So, but like, what's weird to me about that, Tai, is that like by 2020, to your point, you're in a mature market, right? You should have no misconceptions about like where your growth is going to come from. Like,
So I
this
think
is,
all this was really realized in 2022. But even at 2022,
I think 2022 is a bit late, though, right?
sorry.
No, I said I think 2022 is a bit late to sort of get this realization. Like,
Well, there's two things playing here, right? So the first one is, regardless of whatever we're talking about right now, their margins were still not good, and they needed to make live service games because, like I said, even if Sony was like, okay, this is the market has grown, just looking at the balance sheet, they're saying 10 of the 10 games make up 55% of our revenue, and we only own one of those games, which is MLB The Show. That's not a situation we want to be in. So regardless of the market has grown or not, or like it's a mature market, you still need to own those IPs. And Sony's probably dealing with some kind of trauma here, because back in the days, Final Fantasy was a de facto exclusive, GTA was a de facto exclusive, Ridge Racer was a de facto exclusive, Crash Bandicoot was a de facto exclusive, Street Fighter, like all they never had to, like, maybe at the start they told developers, yeah, come to us, but then Xbox came in and Xbox couldn't get these games, right? And then when the Xbox 360 happened, they lost all these games. They lost Resident Evil, they lost all these perceived exclusive games. So as far as they're concerned, we need to control our own destiny, and they did a good job with the PS3, right? In terms of like making them exclusive content. And the truth is, when you see a $1 trillion company, back not maybe not then at the time, when you see Xbox making an Xbox Series X, an Xbox Series S, playground games, compulsion games, you kind of like, okay, man, Ninja Theory, like, oh shit, like what can those guys do? Like, Hellblade was pretty good. Like, can they make a new God of War like game? When you see them investing so much money, like you see them buy Bethesda in 2020, or at some point you're thinking to yourself, oh shit, okay, like, yeah, we need to lock in here. So I don't blame any of them for wanting to expand and grow and protect, because the people who, you could look at it this way: the last time someone was making crazy moves and dropping millions or billions into the industry, and the opposition chose to not do the same, that was the N64 generation, wasn't it? Sony came in and was like, here's all this money. And Nintendo was just kind of like, nah, we just keep doing what we're doing. Then they got killed. Same thing with the gaming generation.
So the company that owns all this HoYoverse stuff is MiyoHoYo.
Yeah, Miyoverse.
Yeah, so they're worth 23 billion today, but they're real, and just like I thought, like they're big, like breakthrough sort of like years, because this is a very old company. They've been around for years. It was between 2016 and 2020. So again, if you're looking to the future, this is the time when you're saying, okay, cool. So how do we do the next thing? Like, I mean, like, yeah, so we can dominate consoles, but like, what's the next thing? And what is this Hawkeye Impact 3D, which was released in 2014, sort of started this thing, and then Guilty Gear and all these other games. So yeah, like, yeah, but I hear what you're saying in terms of like, yeah, they were all late to the party. There were just too many other things happening for them to sort of like see this as something that would end up being the main or the backbone of their revenue.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all late to the party, and they're all suffering for that now. But I think out of all them, Xbox is still, they're in such a good position, because they just need a few tweaks here and there, and they can turn these AA studios into AAA studios. They can turn these indie developers into they actually have so much content available, and they have such a great foundation in live service. Like I told you, Forza Horizon Kart, they can do it. Like, can Sony make a kart racing game? Yeah, sure. But Xbox has the IPs, and they have the younger generation IPs. They have Steve. They have Psychonauts, right? They have Banjo Kazooie. They have Crash. They have Spyro. They have the IPs to make a kart racing game more than Sony. They have the IPs to make a Super Smash Brothers like game more than Sony. They have the expertise of live service companies. Let's not get it twisted. Like Bethesda, Fallout 76 is a successful live service game. Elder Scrolls Online is a successful live service game. Forza is a successful multiplayer live service game. You want to call it live service, sure. Minecraft is a successful game that has live service elements, I believe. I could keep going on, Flight Simulator. There's another one that they have under the bracket. They have like all these amazing pillars that Sony said it in their in their leagues. That Xbox has great pillars that we're far behind on. They just need to expand on that, and I think them getting ABK, as much as people want to say like, oh, that actually hurt them. No, I think having ABK and having all that expertise, Diablo, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, I just think you need to go to these studios and say, let's step up, guys. Let's make something like crazy now. Let's do something great. We have developers who can make single player games. Like, I think it was Xbox 2's podcast where they said, what happens if you take Compulsion, who have creative ideas, and then you take a studio like Ninja Theory and say, you guys deal with the graphics. Here's Compulsion's like story and concept. And then you tell Ninja Theory to make, the game, because they can't do that, right? It's like, what kind of game do you get? You get a unique game that you could say it's arty to an extent, but it actually has gameplay elements. I think that's enough to sell. They have so much going on. I don't know if Asha's the person who can like mix and match these things or identify these things and do these things. I don't know if Matt Booty's the one who can do that either, but they have a lot of potential for sure.
Yeah. So, look, yeah, like Xbox and potential, dude. Like, let's see. I don't want to, because otherwise we'll be here for another 2 hours.
I do have
the
numbers that the game I was looking for, right? So this is back to the Game Pass one. Slime Rancher sold 173k units on PlayStation, and then it was added to PlayStation Plus, which saw a massive boost. And Slime Rancher, which sold only 173k on PlayStation, ended up pulling in nearly 750k new players, which means the game that it reached 1 million. So it sold 173k, and then when it went to PlayStation Plus, it it got an additional 750 new K players. And the point that I was saying is that these were never paid. These people were never buying the games in the first place. So these are not cannibalization of sales. So people need to just take that into consideration whenever you talk about cannibalization of sales, and it's the same thing with Call of Duty. Well, how many of these people who actually signed in to play Call of Duty was going to buy it? I downloaded Call of Duty. I was never going to buy that game. So you can't say I'm a cannibalization of sales. I didn't cannibalize the sale, because the sale was never going to happen.
Yeah. So Rishi says, I played the Black Ops 7 campaign on the VCR Xbox for fun, and it's quite competent port. Yeah, I won't lie. All the things I don't like about Call of Duty Black Ops 7 have to do with the fact that it's always online. Fuzzy says Insomniac was huge already when they got bought. They were, and they got them for a steal. Compared to how much sort of like product, like how those guys are a workhorse. The amount of product that they turn over versus other studios within Sony, I think is quite exemplary. Rishi says many people found comfort in Genshin. Yeah, I think we did go to that one. So this is actually something that you raised here, Fuzzy. That's interesting to me. Xbox has had Roblox as exclusive for years now. And again, like I wonder, like what's the relationship between Xbox and Roblox? Why did they not just buy this company the same way that they bought the Minecraft guys and then just have this print money? Does this even make money? Does Roblox make money? Maybe that's the better question. You guys will let me know. Is it profitable? Is it like printing money the same way Minecraft does for Microsoft? Fuzzy says they weren't a huge. They made Resistance. Yeah, okay, we're talking about Insomniac, which weren't hits. Yeah, so the Resistance games didn't do great, but they still did Ratchet and Clank as well. Also made Sunset Overdrive, which didn't sell much. And they also offered and pitched Xbox Spider-Man, and they didn't. They passed. Like Xbox is the king of passing on shit, but they would have fucked it up anyway. I think that's sort of like historically where we get to. They were a big enough company, yeah, but not a powerhouse. Agreed, but they've earned people's respect over the years through consistency and through delivering, exceptional products. Insomniac made like 30 games, and again, I will always credit the Sony polish. Insomniac, before they were bought by Sony, they made good games. When Sony bought them, they made great games. I'll stand by that, and it's got to do with the polish that Sony has, especially for single-player games. Unfortunately, it's not rubbing off on their multiplayer games. Sony, as a company, has been playing it safe for a long time, and now all they have left is PlayStation. Fuzzy. It's their biggest brand. That's the insurance business, I believe, in Japan. That's their biggest, anchor in the business world is the PlayStation brand. I don't think Sony makes anything bigger than PlayStation in terms of like electronics branding, generally outside what they do in finance in Japan. Reichi, where is Forza Mobile at? Yeah, I think we spoke about this. Where is Viva Pinata? Again, these are all just wasted opportunities that Xbox has. Again, going back to the potential angle that you propose or you put forward, Tai, is that they have all the potential. They've always had the potential. It's just that for some reason those decisions are just never followed through on, I think is the right way to say it. Blah 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 blah. So Rachel says Killings could what is this? Is it Killings? Could have been Xbox party game. Instead they made an arena game. What is this, Rachel? What is it? Killings? What's this? I'm not familiar with that name.
It's an Xbox game.
Is it?
Kill.
Never heard of it.
It's the pottery game.
I have no idea. Okay, that's why I don't know. Is that the game that?
Yeah, he's actually right. Like a party. Like where's the party game? Like Mario Party, for example.
Is this the game that
Double Fine is making? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I fast forwarded through all of that pot remaking BS. It's not for me. But yeah, I get what you said. I get where you're coming from with this. And yeah, like with that time, we are just 2 hours and around 10 minutes into this. We've talked about all the key things I think that have happened since we last spoke on Wednesday. I don't think there's anything that we left on the table. Anything on your side that you think we still need to unpack?
No, not really. I don't know if we said about the Triton added to Spot Netflix was a good idea, because I think if you're
an Xbox guy, aren't you? Like,
well, I mean they did ones with the news, bruh. PlayStation 6 S.
Oh yes, yeah, we meant to talk about that. But before we get to the PlayStation 6s, I just want to say these are all cutscenes from the different seasons, from season 1 all the way up to the current season of the first Descendant. And as we're going through this podcast, I'm watching all, because I've never watched this whole thing in a reel. You always see it in between gameplay and lots of grinding. as I'm watching this, I'm just thinking this is such good quality in terms of like how they are produced, how everything is done. Like it looks great, even in terms of graphics, looks amazing. All these guys had to do was take the script. They could have filmed all this stuff. They could have done all this, generated all this stuff, all these cutscenes. What they should have done is taken the script for all these cutscenes and given it to Western writers. Then they would have had such a much more competent. Because everything, if you're just watching it without dialogue, it looks awesome. It just becomes unbearable when you have to listen to what these people are saying. It's all just gibberish. It's nonsense that means nothing. If you had given all these cutscenes to a Western studio, you would have gotten, a Western studio that's known for writing great cinematic, story-driven games. They could have turned this into something really amazing. Lost opportunity there. Don't know what you guys think. But okay, cool. PlayStation S time. So the story or the rumor is, and this is from Moore's Law is Dead, is that PlayStation is considering a cheaper version of the PlayStation that will be priced between, I think what I saw was $450 and $550. And this will be like the equivalent of the Series S, and of course you will have, the big one, the Prime PlayStation 6 that will probably come around 900 plus, possibly. Again, to me, this is just my thoughts. This is again Xbox being 5 years too early to a solution, and also just implementing it very, very poorly in terms of marketing and positioning, etc., etc. Sony, at the time when Xbox said this, Sony said this is a horrible idea. Why would you do that? Like, you're just going to create problems. And a lot of people ran with the narrative that, yeah, you're going to create a bottleneck for games, and this is going to cripple, the quality of the games. I bet you, and we spoke about this earlier today, I bet you when Sony does exactly the same thing, you won't get the same amount of backlash. And it'll probably be successful. It'll probably be the best-selling version of that, and a lot of people are going to pick it up. Am I wrong, Time?
No, you're right. If Xbox was to release a Series S version now without the prices going up, people will see it as more justifiable. But I think that's because gamers only care about themselves, right? Because everybody who is making the complaints about the Series S, the Series S was never meant for them. Because they were also entitled, the idea of a device existing that isn't for them offends them. It pisses them off. I know people who, when the Pro was coming out, PS5 Pro was coming out, they kept on saying, "Who's this for? So expensive. It ain't for you." So you don't have to complain about it. You don't have to cry about it.
But that's where I disagree with you. But you can. It's your complete right to cry about it, and you can exercise that right. Yes, even if it's not for you, but you still have the right to complain about it. That's the only thing I.
Yeah, but do you see how pathetic that is?
But that's the thing. That's a judgment. But at the same time,
the judgment is correct because, like, for example, who's crying about a 5080?
But like, fair enough.
Who's crying about who's crying about?
But it's fine.
Who's crying about who's crying about the iPhone 17 Pro X Max?
Agreed. I'm saying to you, you can look at it and say, well, you know what? It's this and this and this and this. But the bottom line is that it's your right to make that complaint or that judgment, even if it's not for you. That's what free speech is. That's what being able to express yourself is even if you're disagreeable and it doesn't serve a purpose, but you're disagreeable, you have the right to do that. So that's just the only thing I just wanted to add there.
No, I mean, yeah, no, I agree. Like they can cry. It's just childish, But yeah, but I still think regardless, the Series S was a great idea. I think it did its job, and unfortunately, because of console wars, they crapped on it basically. The interesting thing is, like, every developer who ends up making a game for the Series S, they ended up saying the same thing. They're like, oh, because of the Series S, we're able to program better for the for everyone else, and this is what we should be pushing for devs to actually, to to work better on these games, to optimize this game properly. Like this is a gamer centric thing, but instead they were like, oh, you're holding back the gen Series S. It's just pathetic. Like there's no other industry where this happens. It's just gamers. Yeah, it's just gamers, to be honest with you.
It's and again, like you are such a hater. You are such a hater of gamers. Anyways, and again, like I think yeah, like in terms of in principle, I agree with what you say. The only thing I tend like to not agree, well, not even not agree with, it's just a matter of like I just say, well, they're allowed to do so. It's the same thing of like what you would say about like, for instance, monetization. Even if it's what your argument is going to be, is like, well, monetization is, you know, it adds someone is going to buy it. It's for someone, even if it's not for you. And you know, does it make the game better necessarily? No, it doesn't. Doesn't add anything to the gamers, but corporates will still do it. They'll still do a lot of things that don't add additional value to the game for gamers, but they'll still go through with it because it's all about the money at the end of the day. And I think with, you know, with players or with gamers as well, I take the same approach to say, well, you know what, these things are not necessarily healthy or good or positive, but at the end of the day, this is how these people express themselves, and it's their right to express themselves in that way. Whether or not we agree with it or we think it's, you know, it's a waste of time or it's being childish or whatever the situation is, it's their you know, it's their voice. And then Ty, I think we're 2 hours 16 in. I think this is a nice place. This is normally where our podcast goes off the rails, where me and you just start, you know, freestyling and just having the conversations that we normally have on a day-to-day basis. But I think, yeah, this one I'm very happy that this is a perfect turning point, or sorry, a perfect juncture to leave it at, so that you can go get your R&R. I've still got 1 or 2 chores that I just need to complete as well. But yeah, I thought we had a solid show. Yeah, anything else? I think but I don't think we left anything on the table. But yeah, we have a show on Wednesday, so we'll definitely cover it there if there is anything that we left untouched today. So aside from getting better, Ty, what are you doing? And the programming which we talked about.
Yeah, I'm, you know, coming up with ideas to. I want to be the next Sample Interactive guys. I want to make a game. You know, it seems like I want to make the next. I want to make a gacha game. Seems like that's the way to go. I know I make a gacha game. You know, Raichi's there straight away. You know, and I'll add some good elements for ushers to come through as well. So I know
it looks like this what I'm looking at
already.
Now.
Sorry, what?
Sorry, if it looks like this, what I'm looking at now, then you've got me. If the character and the art direction and the design looks like it doesn't have to be this quality of graphics, but if this is what you have in mind, then you've got me.
Yeah. It will be. You know, listen. As you always say, who's this for? Who's this for? It's for Asha Sorachi. That's who it's for. So there you go. No, I think some gamers are very different. I do think you need to like know who your audience is, and I do think if you know who your audience is, and I think you brought up a point a while ago that, like, you know, start not releasing these games, but like start involving the players a lot of feedback into the game so they can tell you what's good or not. And I think that's what I'm hoping that's what Ash is gonna do. But even for State of Decay 3, that's something that I think they're kind of doing already, where they're telling people like, hey, listen, here's the game, come beta test it out. Like, these people have been playing the game for a long time, and they've been like, given improvements, and the game has been changing over that. And I think that's actually a really good element. Baldur's Gate is the way it is because it was in early access for so many years, right? So I think Xbox needs to, not Xbox, like developers in general need to probably lean into this. Because even like some of the prototype the games I made, it hits me that like, yeah, I might think this is cool, but like, does everybody else? Exactly. And the answer is probably no. You know, so you really just need that feedback loop, and you need people who aren't even like. That's why I said earlier on with Asha, the fact that she's detached from Xbox can be a good thing as well, because she has no affinity towards any of these things, right? So if I bring in somebody who's detached from my game or any game or whatever it is, like something I want to make, and I say, yo, what do you think about this? And they say, yo, this is trash. You know? Like, yeah. Like, imagine if a lot of people played Veilguard before it came out. They were like, yo, like, what the hell is this? Like, imagine if you brought Skill up to play Veilguard 2 years before, and he was like, yo, everything's so PC, bro. Like, what the hell is this? Maybe you could have been like, oh, shit. Okay, well, let's change the writing then.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, I agree with you. And Reichi says, and I think this is very serious. I'm sure someone will do a state of waifu gotcha game. I'm sure there's a lot of those already, because I've seen so many ads with zombies and scantily clad characters on when just scrolling on Instagram or on Facebook. So that but not on the console space, obviously. However, like what I'm curious about is how many gotcha games are. Does anyone know any games off the top of your head from the West that are gotcha games?
So this is something that I thought that needs to be explored. You can make gotcha games or whatever it is, but make it Western, and look at Mortal Kombat as a prototype. Look at Mortal Kombat and Baldur's Gate 3 and Cyberpunk as a prototype for how a Western gotcha game could and should look like. Even Mass Effect, right? You could do Mass Effect as well. So obviously keep the gotcha attraction or the features, but just Westernize it. Cyberpunk, and Mass Effect, and The Witcher, and the other games. I think Mortal Kombat is actually a very good example of how a Western gotcha game can look like in terms of feel. Now you might say not this version of Mortal Kombat. That's fine. You could go back to whichever Mortal Kombat you want, 9, 8. But I think Mortal Kombat and Cyberpunk are really good examples of how a Western gotcha game could work. Asha, you're muted.
So my question is, why are Western devs adverse to gotcha games? What happened? Like this is free money.
So
they copy everything that comes from the East. Sorry, go ahead.
So I think the what I would say here is, like, here's my guess, and Rachel, you might be able to chime in on this as well, right? But I think when gotcha games, like, the West has their own version of like these games, right? Which is just live service games, free to play games.
Waifu simulators.
No. Like gotcha games are free to play games.
Yes, right? Yes, but like most of them are like waifu type simulators.
Yeah, so I think where the waifu stuff really came about was, I just think the East are more because of anime and all these things. I think they're more willing to check out these kind of games. Like you think about like Western cartoons or animation, they don't do any of these things like the East. They don't make these kind of animated content where women are all like this. So I think it becomes natural for you to see that in the East, and because it starts to blow up in the East. And listen, let's not get it twisted. Gacha games are still, I think the most popular places for gacha games are still in the East. So, but in the West, what you're seeing is Fortnite.
Yeah, but like there've been a lot of like crossover like recently. Like, I mean, Genshin Impact is the case in point, and so many other. Like the closest thing that you've got, I mean, Pokemon, you can also say is like the Pokemon Go thing is also like a gotcha game to some extent. But like the closest thing that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But like with, for instance, Genshin Impact, why has no one in the West say, well, I mean, this thing is selling like, or like the purchases coming from the West, are largely also, responsible for this game being so, what's the word, successful. But besides that, don't they want to sell to Western, Eastern, audiences, similar experiences with a Western take or a Western spin on it?
Well, you see, the thing is, like, now that it's grown, I think you can start seeing some Western developers, maybe indie ones, start to make these kind of games, but also I think it might just be a level of expertise in terms of they don't know how to make it, or something I think is important here is that the creatives who are working on these games are very, very different. For better or for worse, gaming has just expanded, and somebody said this about Hollywood, right? That the reason why Hollywood is so left or like this is because everyone who was a creative or artsy is just generally just more left leaning in general, right? They would like to create. People who are more on the opposite side, they probably stick to the engineering and the, like hard. They're not as creative, so you're going to have like a skew, and it happens because listen, Club Skirt did really, really well. It did better than Persona and some of these other like JRPG games that have like Final Fantasy didn't sell. Did it sell as well as Club Skirt? But Club Skirt isn't really a gacha game. It's not really sexualized in that way.
Final Fantasy wait. But Final Fantasy did sell better than Club Skirt.
I mean, yeah, but sure, but would they
like? It's still Final Fantasy. I mean,
it's Final Fantasy is a much smaller budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Like comparatively, didn't make as much money, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing about gacha games is that, like, at least in the East, they will sell well with the crappy stories, but gacha games in the West ain't selling that well because people here in the West will value stories more and something like a deep connection. So I think that's where it's gonna fall up. It's gonna start to fall apart. And just another additional point, it makes more sense to make a game for your region for many different reasons than to make a game for a different region. Like if you're a Japanese developer, like why are you making Call of Duty? And if you're a Western developer, why are you making like I'm not trying to box people. I'm also like it makes natural sense that like the environment you grew up in is where you're going to make those kind of games, especially when all your friends are talking about it. Like maybe in school, maybe everyone's talking about a gacha game in the East, but in the West they're talking about Call of Duty. So that's what you grew up around. That's what you're gonna make.
So I'm just looking at like the numbers for Genshin Impact in America. There's over 20 million players just for Genshin Impact in America.
Yeah, for sure. But I would imagine most of them is in the East, though. No, I think what you're trying to say is that like there's a lot of players there, like for you to make a Western gacha game.
Yeah. Because I mean, like there's over 300 million total registered users.
The interesting question here would be, if you're to make a gacha game, do you need to make the characters Eastern or Western?
I mean, all Eastern characters look Western anyway. I mean, like anime characters all look like Caucasian.
No. I mean, do you make the characters look like Mortal Kombat, or or do you make them look more like anime?
That's a good question. I would have to think about that one. So I'm just looking here. It says so Genshin Impact, about 45% of the audience is from the West. So it's literally a 5% difference.
Okay.
So, but again, to your question, I think that's a brilliant question, Ty, in terms of like how would I make the characters? I would I don't know. I think I would go for something that's close to like what the first Descendant did in terms of art style, because I think that appeals. You can do a lot with that. You can cover both anime-like characters or with anime-like features and qualities, but also you can go for something that's more cel-shaded, or what's it, cel-shaded. But I've found that cel-shaded things just don't land as well with Western audiences. With Western audiences. A good example of this is, especially from the West, if they've been made by like a Western studio, they don't do as well as if you did something that's a little bit more grounded when it comes to the graphic style, that's less cartoony. The ones that sell are the ones that, if you're doing that and it's coming from Japan, you're more likely to even get that following in the West because of the fact that it's from Japan. versus if you did it from the if you did it as a Western thing for Western audiences. I wonder how that would work. I don't know, to be honest with you. I think that's one of the things that you'd have to look into is like who who is this product for and what are those people into?
I think it's a good question. Like, honestly, I would just go Western, which is actually like, because, with all this like Unity things, my mind was always like, oh, if something ever did take off, my mind is like straight away to go like Western. But at the same time, that's not set in stone, because I also need to like obviously do like market research to be like, okay, like what do people actually prefer? Like where's this audience going to be? But I do think the idea of like the question is it that there's an audience for Western gacha games with Western character like models, or is it that the reason why it's not there is because there is no market for that, and if you were to make one, you might as well just stick with the Eastern one because that's where most of your sales are going to come from anyway.
I think you would just need to experiment to see what works for the type of audience that you want. Because again, a lot of these games do well in the West as well. So I think it'll just be a matter of like literally, trial and error, not even trial and error, but just sort of finding out like the audience that you're targeting. If like for instance the thing is good and it looks and it's the same quality as like Genshin Impact, I don't think the art style necessarily matters. If the audience is behind that being a quality product, it has the story that they want, it has the gameplay mechanics that they're interested in, it has the characters that they're interested in. I think the art and all that stuff can be secondary, and the themes are just as important. It's like, what are the themes? Are these themes that appeal to this group of people, etc. Okay, so now it's 2:31. We're done. We're going now. We're going, guys. I've just got to run as well. So, but like, thank you for joining us as always, Raichi, Fuzzy, Cass. You guys have been great. I think we had some awesome conversation. Raichi says, "Gotcha games to be successful needs good stories and characters. Sometimes the West is allergic to these, right?" So I was telling Ty the other day, like I'm not necessarily convinced that it's like the same comment I'm making about like this game here. Is that like the story is good depending upon what you're into, and some of them are just not good if you're not into that sort of like storytelling, I suppose. Like for instance, how this is done. Like a lot of Korean games tend to have these like really drawn out narratives that don't really make any sense and they're not very gripping or interesting. So it depends. It depends on who's handling the story and what type of story is it. Is it an anime type story? Is it like a Persona? Is it like a Final Fantasy? Or is it a Western type story? Is it like a Mass Effect? Is it like The Witcher? There's a lot of things you could do there. I think there's no right answer there. Rachel also says recruit characters gets you emotionally attached to their backstories. Yes, these are all mechanics that work very well for gacha games. But guys, thank you for joining us. I really, really enjoyed the conversations today. And I think this was a nice and comfortable size, half of what we normally go for. But looking forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday. Hope everyone has an awesome weekend. Players out. Cheers, guys.